Hello and welcome to We Women Want. Today we are in conversation with Shaili Chopra. She is the founder and the president of She the People TV, but also she's come out with a book which I find pretty interesting. It's called The Sisterhood Economy of, by and for women. In fact, that is pretty much what this show is also about. We raise issues for women. We've raised issues, say, from body shaming to women's health issues, to women acid attack victims, women in uniform. We've, issues that pertain not just to women, but society in general, which of course also includes the institution of marriage. But welcome to this conversation, Shaili. Very good to have you. And I think you've raised a lot of interesting points in this book. And also what is interesting is that they come with examples and anecdotes, I think, which I find that really always helps make your point. But first of all, if you can tell our audience a bit about the book before we go into specifics.
Thanks so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure. You know, I always say that women need to stand up for each other and with each other and create opportunities and say their name in another room full of opportunities. And I think that's really the basis of this book, Sisterhood Economy. It's so important for us to recognize that if we are half the population, we should be half the force, half the contributor to this country's economic growth story, but we are not. And I think that's really been one of the things that has bothered me all these years, because as a student of economics, I used to ask myself, where are the women? And what are they doing? How are we measuring them? In a country where women are sliding on the workforce barometer, one has to ask ourselves that how can we become a $5 trillion economy without the contribution of women? So I said, let's pick up an economic issue and understand all the non-economic factors that are holding it back. That's what packs Sisterhood Economy. But
you begin by, you also quote a KPMG report saying if women are given the equal opportunities, our GDP would go up by 18% in 2025.
Yeah.
But we hear stories about women breaking the glass ceiling, more and more women CEOs, and they're not just in the workforce, but they are at the top level also. So do you see the tangible change? Are you positive about it? Are you apprehensive about it?
I wouldn't say that I'm apprehensive. I would say I'm energized by the movement.
Okay.
And the reason I'm not very positive so far is because I feel the numbers are few. Right? We do see a bunch of women in the front pages of the magazines, but we still don't see enough. There's a scary statistic that the number of women who are CEOs is smaller than the number of CEOs across the world who are men with the name John. So it just
really?
That's right. So it just tells you that we've tried to scratch the surface. We are raising the right issues. We're talking on shows like this, and hopefully this is having a change all the way from the bottom to the way to the top. But are women necessarily getting a space where they're able to raise their voice or get more promotions? I think the percentage is tiny. The more women want to have an equal playing ground, there is more resistance as well.
Yes, and also, when I was doing a couple of shows where we had women CEOs and we spoke to men also, and they're saying, they would prefer to hire women, maybe not on the CEO level, but hire women because women know how to multitask better. We are used to, we can bring up kids, we can do a job, we can look after a house, handle the kids' homework. Women know their time and they have no issues, in finishing the work by 7. They want to go home, they want to get on with that life. So it's a much more positive work culture they bring to the office.
So, there are two parts to it. Women bring a great positive work culture, whether they're at the middle, bottom or top. But just look at the fact that men say that they love to hire women. Women have to learn this from the men. How do you get your work delivered? You hire people who deliver it. So men sit in position of power and say, I'm going to hire women everywhere because they get the work done. Now we need women to start saying, I love your seat. And I want to get the pleasure of sitting in that chair and get the work done, because women get it done too. We've seen it from leaders, across the political spectrum, where young women took charge and they showed the world that age doesn't matter. We've seen that with young women who are entrepreneurs, who are leaving very, very plush, comfortable corporate careers and saying, I'm going to make this new company and, it's going to get listed. We've seen this with the founder of Bumble, for example. We're seeing this in India. But I think we've been so often fed that the leader of the organization will be the guy, and that all his able aides will be this retinue of women. We need to change that. Women need to get comfortable in the general seat, not necessarily on the side.
But moving on from the workforce to the home, women and marriages, the institution of marriage, we've seen, I think more cases are coming out to light because women are now learning to speak up. They're also becoming financially independent because control is a big factor in marriage.
Yeah.
And the one who has the finances does have the control. Your views on marriages today, and do you think marriage as an institution now is taking a backseat to the more independent woman who is a pretty self-sufficient unit on her own? She doesn't even now need kids for men for kids because to have kids because there's IVF, there are various other means.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting question, and the way I'd put it is that for most women, the idea of having marriage is about what does she want from it, right? I don't think biologically it's important. It's not important for procreation. It's possibly important for companionship. But I think, what's happening in our society is that when women earn, yes, they speak up, they assert, right? But where is the problem? The problem is not in the fact that they are changing. The problem is who's not changing. People who've been in sort of position of power. And I say this not just about husbands. I say this about brothers. I say this about fathers and father-in-laws, or sometimes even mother-in-laws. Because patriarchy is not necessarily about, it's not always packed in a man's body. It's often packed in a woman's body as well. It's a system against which women are stacked up against. So I feel that the larger issue at the point here is that men and patriarchal women find a great deal of discomfort in making space for others. And that is problematic when women say that, listen, I own my own money, I don't need your permission. Or I take a decision for my own child, I don't have to seek your opinion. Maybe I'll ask in a friendly way. But if you're not going to give me the space to have my choice, that is problematic. So I think there are lots of things that will change. Marriage happens to be one of them because it's the closest circuit institution at home. But this is happening even in organizations. In a conference room, a woman who used to not speak suddenly talks her mind out, and just see how everybody gets uneasy in their chairs, right? We need to normalize this. Because for many years, women have gotten uneasy or just shut up and sat down and heard what was told to them.
But is it now, I mean, that may be true 10 years ago. Is it still, because now we are seeing, I think as many women, there are offices with 50% women, 60% women, is now becoming more the norm. So
I think we really feel that it's changed a lot sitting in this studio, but I'm convinced that it's not changing. In fact, in many cases, I feel highly educated women are still getting pushed by their parents to get married. In the book, I talk about how lots of women come back from top Ivy League colleges and their parents say, okay, we've got you educated, now find the right partner and get married. And the girl would say, no, I want to do investment banking. The father would say, investment banking will take you to another country, another city. We'd rather have you closer here. Just get married, set up a chocolates business and get going. I have nothing against chocolate businesses. I'm saying, do what Pooja Dhingra did. She took the chocolate business and turned it into an empire. But, parents say this with a sense of settling the girl with something little and letting her be on her own. I think that's very problematic. The world's spinning ahead, powering technology and saying, let's have equal access. We see that slogans have come on. Instagram is talking about it. Our walls around the streets are saying, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. There's a feeling that things are changing. But this is only the very initial part of our hard work, which is that we've started a conversation. Now let's turn the conversation into a debate. Let people get comfortable with the discomfort. Let's execute it in our policies. We have loans for women today. How many women are taking the loan? Why aren't they taking it? Because your collaterals are the same. Your expectations is that the collateral a guy gives and a woman will have to give similar one. But if her starting point is not equal, she doesn't have the assets in the first place, what collaterals does she show you? So essentially a large number of bank loans that are meant for women under schemes are underutilized. I think that's true everywhere. There's a shift in the way startup funding is happening. More women are getting funded. But is there a large number of women who are still not getting funded for many stereotypical reasons? Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, women's health, for example, right? You try and explain to large number of founders why women's health is a gaping sort of area of gap, market, that's missing today. I mean, it's not serviced today. And you'll find people are still figuring out what is women's health. Is it just a gynecologist? We have not even upped our
Is
knowledge.
that so? Yeah, I was not, yeah, I don't know, I'll take an issue with you, because on that point, I think women's health, as much as men's health is something I think is, you know, it depends on your strata of society rather than on
It does.
gender.
Right.
But,
Yes. But the solutions for women have to be crafted very differently. Did you know, Priya, that today in our country, 99% of gynecologists judge women? They ask them questions about why they're not having babies.
Yeah,
Is that the job of a gynecologist?
That's the question. Good point. I wanted to ask you that women who don't have kids are not seen as, okay, fulfilled women or complete women, or, you know, and if someone says that I want to have a child later, or and now you can freeze your eggs, there are various options. They're seen as, you know, you're losing your femininity.
You're losing femininity, you're a discord to society, and you don't necessarily believe in doing what will be good for everyone.
Right.
I think, you know, that's what I'm often saying, that a woman who deviates from what is the chosen path for her will always be called a label. And labels are just reserved for women, right? She is the type who freezes her eggs. She is the type who puts her career over family. She is the type who has no time to pack her children's tiffin. She is the type who doesn't look after her family or doesn't go on holidays because she's too busy making money. Have we ever said any of this for men? I just want to remind ourselves that, you know, what happens is we get dissolved in this conversation and buzz because there are 55 things being said about women in the top notches. Women find a mention in the sanitary, you know, on the hygiene connection in the Red Fort speech of the Prime Minister. Women find a mention through a show. This means that we are starting something. This doesn't mean that things have changed. It doesn't mean that, you know, on the ground parents have changed or in-laws have changed or property rights by law have changed, but how many women give up their property for their brothers? Because the brother will get upset, and I don't want my family discord to happen. Who sacrifices? Women sacrifice. And these are the reasons why women are pushed back from contributing to the economy. She's not taking her right to property. She doesn't have a house of her own, even though her rights allow her, but her family won't. If she has that house, the independence and the confidence she gets to say, I'm going to now go find a job and contribute to that economy. If her mother-in-law says, do your own thing, I'm not going to have a view on when you have your kids, she's going to be able to do it. Point is, do we make that environment friendly enough for her to do it?
Okay, now the converse view, which is the man who does this. You know, there are women who, you know, men who help in, you know, bringing up kids. You know, there's no longer seen a lot of men, you know, also ask for maternity leave for the right reasons. You know, they want to work at home, they want to get involved in the diapers. Stay-at-home dads. Do they also, do they get the appreciation, or do they?
No, they get stereotyped.
They get
deeply stereotyped. And I must say that just because I work a lot with women doesn't mean that I don't respect, you know, the situations that men find themselves in. Do all men want to run homes and have the pressure of putting food on the table or being the only engine, the money-making engine of a house?
That's a pressure by itself.
That's a huge pressure, right? I think absolutely, right? So as a mother of a child, of two kids, boy and a girl, I'm often telling them to make their choices, right? And I'm saying, make whatever choices that you want to make, but both of you be financially independent, right? I just don't want one of them to think that it's their job to do so. I understand the pressure that men feel when their own friends in their WhatsApp group criticize, oh, you're a ghar jamai.
Yes, that's the
right?
word.
That's the term. One of the few labels that men get. Or that, you know, this guy is very good. We'll do the stuff outside. We'll do the adventure. He'll make the dinner. I hear the tanas and the taunts that happen to them, but I know that this percentage of men who are coming out and saying, I am very comfortable being the wife in the house.
Yeah.
So we had a debate at home, my son and I. Husband is a man, or wife is is a wife always a woman? And I said, do you recognize that husband and wife are roles? They are not about gender.
Yeah.
And can be played by anybody. Right. And so it was a very intriguing debate because I said, you know what? The husband's not always a man in a suit. A husband can be a woman. And a wife could be a man. And it's absolutely fine by us. So that's the conversation that we need to have. And it's such a tiny conversation in our society.
Yeah, but it becomes a label and a stereotype. You know, women who wears the pants, that's not seen as a positive, that's actually seen as a negative. She's too masculine means, you know, you're not playing the role that society set out for you. We're going to keep this conversation going, but after a quick break.
किसी अस्पताल से डिस्चार्ज होकर घर आने पर सबको खुशी होना स्वाभाविक है, मगर जल्द ही इस खुशी के बाद एक चिंता बढ़ जाती है। वो है महंगी दवाइयाँ, जो जरूरी भी है और मजबूरी भी है।
अरे दादारी, अतिक महंगा।
एक दिन श्याम को उसके दोस्त से पता चलता है कि शासन के निर्देश पर खोली गई श्री धन्वंतरी जेनेरिक मेडिकल स्टोर्स में बहुत कम कीमत में दवाइयाँ मिल रही हैं।
दीदी, दवाई तो पूरा दे हस ना?
हाँ, पूरा दे हो, का होगी?
कुछ नहीं, अतका कम बिल देख के
लागिस की दवाई तो कम नहीं है। अरे भाई, यही तो कमाल है।
वाह, कमाल है बाबा।
बाबा के नहीं, काका के कमाल है।
राज्य के सभी नागरिक स्वस्थ रहें और उन्हें आसानी से रियायती दरों पर जरूरी दवाएं उपलब्ध हो, इस बड़ी चुनौती को सफल कर दिखाया है छत्तीसगढ़ के मुखिया श्री भूपेश बघेल ने। इतना ही नहीं, यहाँ के ज्यादा से ज्यादा नागरिकों को योजना का लाभ मिल सके, इसलिए राज्य के समस्त 169 नगरीय निकायों में 195 श्री धन्वंतरी जेनेरिक मेडिकल स्टोर्स खोले गए हैं।
मेरे माता पिता को बीपी और शुगर है, जिनमें दवाइयों में बहुत खर्च हो जाता है। जब से श्री धन्वंतरी मेडिकल खोला है, काफी कम पैसों में दवाइयाँ आ जाती है। धन्यवाद भूपेश सरकार।
धन्वंतरी मेडिकल खुले, बहुत राहत मिले। धन्यवाद भूपेश बघेल।
हे धन्वंतरी देवता, आप समुद्र मंथन से अवतरित होकर सबला निरोगी बनाए बर अमृत कलश में जो औषधि लेकर प्रकट हो रहे, आज हमर मुखिया श्री भूपेश बघेल पूरा करत है। दवा पूरी कम दाम,
याद रखो श्री धन्वंतरी के नाम।
Hello and welcome back to a We Women conversation. We're in conversation with Shaily Chopra. She's the founder and president of She the People TV, and we're also discussing her book Sisterhood Economy of, for and by women. In fact, a lot of interesting issues have been raised which we even discussed in some of our shows, so I was very happy to read this book. In fact, we discussed the concept of marriage, of course, but the concept of now the single woman, that's I think really what we are seeing. The more it's interesting, the more progressive, the more financially independent a woman is, being single is seen as one of the signs. So does that mean that being married was just the opposite?
I think that's a brilliant question, and I think this question is going to get a crafted answer as we go through the next couple of decades. Whether marriage is perhaps what makes you look less cool in this world versus single. But I think in my chapter in the book, Single Women Are Rocking It, it comes not necessarily from the idea of abandoning marriage. It comes from the fact that you are making a choice which is about either not wanting to depend on somebody, or wanting to become a caregiver, or just choosing the fact that I would not want to make commitments. It is also choosing to perhaps say, I want to be financially independent for myself. If somebody interprets this as selfish, too bad. I want to be a mother. Somebody said this the other day, you don't have to have marriage to have kids, right? I mean, I guess that's a legit reason for women to say that maybe I would have gotten married if that was the only way to have a kid, but now even that's not required, right? So I think today, one recognition that we need to have in India is that the number of single women in India is probably the size of a few countries in the world. Whether women are divorced, whether they are single by choice, women are making these choices out of either having had a bad experience or wanting to avoid a bad experience. Many men I know are making this choice too.
Yeah, I was just saying.
And they are looked at as, oh, lucky guy, he's a bachelor in his 50s. Have you ever heard somebody say that to a woman? They'll be like, oh, how will you live the rest of your life? Right? So I think Single Women Rocking It has got many beautiful layers and these amazing stories of women across India, in big and small towns, navigating the fun and the difficulty of staying single. But what's also very interesting to see, women are now saying that for the longest time we didn't have money. The agency that money has got them. is something that people want to hold on to before it becomes part of the family unit.
But yeah, but we've spoken about women as the underdog, women as the victim, women as the one who's always labeled. But what about the femme fatale, the women who, I mean, not all women are victims, right?
Yeah.
There are, so there are cases, for instance, I even have someone from the Men's Welfare Society calling me up and saying,
they troll me a lot.
They troll you a lot because, which is true, laws are in a way that, the dowry law is framed in such a way that the woman does get all the power. Of course, she has to have the nerve to go to the police station and make that complaint. But having done that, there are a lot of women who misuse these rules, these laws also. So are men right when they ask for men are asking for equality? I mean, I'm stumbling over that, but that's...
So you know what? I think there is legitimacy in situations where there is a case or a few cases where women have abused the law, right? But I just always want to remind people that
more than a few cases.
Okay, more than a few cases. The status quo in a country of 1.4 billion people is that men control the game. They are the masters of running homes and businesses. They are often the masters of the women they live with. So when we are talking about the reverse, there are cases. Women are human beings. Nobody is putting them on a higher moral pedestal. At no point does one say that women don't make errors. There will always be people who make errors. Just like not all women are feminists and not all men are not feminists, right? So I'm just trying to say that this is bound to happen. And it'll happen, by the way, across genders. We're talking about marriage today. Should marriage become legalized in same-sex marriages? The next question would be, we said it, there will be problems. Of course, there'll be problems in any marriage, same-sex or not. So the point here is that...
But someone said the happiest marriage is the lesbian marriage, two women living together.
I know, it just sounds like it could be paradise, but actually I'm pretty certain that there'll be struggles there as well. This is the nature of humanity. So people who make mistakes and people who abuse the law will always be there, whether men or women. But I get very hassled when they feel the need to generalize that and not notice the fact that the status quo of the world has been to find a way to keep the women under and control over them. That is the largest problem that we face today. Until the level playing field is equal, it'll be very hard for me to look at the other side and say that, oh, you know what, this is the larger problem. There is a problem, but it's not the larger problem. Okay. The other thing that I do want to bring on the table is that there's always this perception that women who stand for women don't like men. Absolutely wrong, right? You can fight against the patriarchy while still loving the men in your life and the men in your society and admiring the men who are writing great stuff and are excellent leaders and are running big businesses. That's how we are. We should be, because we want to have our allies everywhere. For me, it is so much easier to get 10 men in a room and tell them, you guys are fixing this in your groups for me. I don't want your alumni groups to talk about women in WhatsApp groups as if, that they should be joked about. Cut down the sexism in your groups. Men can do this for me. I just need to remind myself I can sit in a chair and get some men to do this. And if they do it, they are champions. We need more female role models and more male champions. And the more and sooner we realize this, the less we'll have to worry about this entire effort that we're trying to create into a movement. Because we need people to do this work.
What about issues like body shaming? Now, that is something, I think, a concept that women are foisting on other women.
Yes.
Size 0 is normal. Who decides that? It's a woman who decides that. It's the women fashion designers who will not even display XXL clothes in their showrooms. A lot of people have complained that you have to order these clothes online. Now, a XXL person will definitely want to try on a clothes more than the size 0 girl.
Yeah.
So why? And these are women doing it to other women.
So I think first is that there are women doing it to other women, but there are a large number of men doing it too. The entire fashion industry is run by men.
No, fair enough.
Okay, but the beauty industry is run by men. I'm not again saying this is about men and women. I actually think it's about society and it's about the standards that we set, right? Today, we talk about, as a platform, for example, we don't work with fairness creams. We take a stance. We don't propagate or have conversations or showcase women who are just size 0. In fact, often we have people who are cribbing about skinny shaming. Ananya Pandey comes and talks about how people call her a flat screen because she's getting body shamed for being a thin person. So I think, the society has sort of labeled the idea of who is a pretty woman.
Yeah.
Right? And that is exactly how they've also labeled who is the handsome guy. Fair and handsome is a cream, just to remind the world.
Yeah.
Surely the genesis of that came from the fact that if women have stereotypical issues, so do the men. Now, this problem has to be stemmed in a mindset shift. And who does that lie with? Parents. I blame the parents here. If you don't raise your children to start getting out of this situation, they won't feel confident enough. Because the minute they arrive in school, or school buses, or colleges, they've got friends, then they've got social media, and then they've got television, and they've got movies, where they say, oh, you know what, if you don't have that Kamar from Pathan, is that the film, right? This is the only thing I've seen on television of late, the scene. Then you're stereotyping what your waistline needs to be. But the new generation of men and women are going to shake up this system quite a bit, because the comfort with which chubby women are talking about being comfortable in their own skin.
Correct.
The number of women who are talking about the fact that they end up with bigger weight problems because of medical reasons that went ignored, because parents kept saying, khana mat khao. Problem seems to be in the hormones, not in the khana levels that person is eating, right? Somebody, in fact, we were talking about a video the other day on Instagram, how parents are stereotyping their own daughters by saying, stop eating a pizza a day. Now, I don't think a pizza a day is good for anybody, but nonetheless, if parents don't kind of bring that change in their head about what and why, that's, we've always turned health about beauty. Hopefully, the next couple of decades, we'll de-link that. Eat oranges because your skin will glow. Eat oranges because they're good for your system. Just saying.
But skin will glow is a more catchier. It works with kids also, I've seen.
It's packaging.
But it's packaging, and it's also the, what you said is the parents. It's the parents who are to blame, and more often than not, the mother will tell the daughter कि आपको इस तरह behave करना है, men will be right, learn to sacrifice, sit properly. And the other thing is, we say beti padhao, but it's actually beta padhao, because the guy has to, it's not that Mulayam Singh Yadav saying boys will be boys. अब वो ज़माना नहीं रहा है.
ज़माना अभी भी वही है, पर हम बोल नहीं मतलब
ज़्यादा बोल रहे
हैं. That's good though. But can we start talking to boys when they're young? Yes. When I had my son, my first child, I was very worried, because I was like, I have a new thing to do now, which is explain how I'm going to raise a boy to understand what's okay and what's not okay. And to that extent, also raise the boy to recognize that, things don't have to fall on him. My own colleagues, I have male colleagues who now are negotiating in their marriage or potential relationships. They're like, it's not my job to pay for the holiday. The guy is saying this.
Oh, lovely.
And he's learning this at She the People. He's like, I've understood. Equality has to happen on both ends, right? So, 40% of She the People's audience is men. It's very heartening for me, because it's important for my audience to know that there are men out there who are learning and rewiring their head. So many times in our DMs, we get messages from guys saying, मैंने ये सोचा ही नहीं था. It never occurred to me that this could be happening to women, right?
So this is a conversation not just for women amongst women, but actually, I think for women with
men in bracket right here to remind men
that this is a conversation, I think, where men and women need to really partake equally for a more equal society. But thank you and congratulations on your book, and thank you for joining us for this conversation.
Thanks, Priya.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.